Alrighty, good morning everyone. We want to welcome you to, well, good morning, it's a good afternoon. Uh, and I forgot to correct the color, so I look a little bit, more, well, I don't know, it looks alright. We'll just roll with it. I don't tell you guys, I don't bore you guys with all the detail, the minutia of things, uh, how crazy some of this stuff can get on all of this. We are going to be, let me see here, make sure I'm in the right deal, in session 8 this afternoon. And it's this afternoon because for whatever reason our software didn't want to work this morning. It's kind of weird. Okay, so I know a little bit about computers and I know a little bit about this stuff, but how sometimes we revert back to our, I don't want to say old or anything, our established habits. And one of those things as humans, we have that, what's it called? The fight or flight deal. And one of my deals is I want to figure it out. So if I get presented with a situation and it's complex or whatever, I tend to pause. I tend to wait because something has worked before and I'm going to try that. Well, this morning, click on the button, and sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes, it literally can take like 2 or 3 minutes for everything, for the program to start and boot up and everything. Like it's open and everything, actually, and I've showed you guys before, but like I'll click it, and sometimes it takes a while for it to go. It shouldn't be like that, but for some odd reason it does. And so I sat there and I clicked it, waited. I was like, well, this is too long, so I'm going to click off. Well, maybe it will work. So I click on it again. And so I was literally like, for like 20 minutes there, I was like waiting for the program to kick on, and it never did. I don't know. Just never did. So if you guys will turn to your Bibles, get your Bibles out. Hopefully you guys have eaten lunch, taken care of what you got to take care of. And we had mentioned on our page that we were going to be doing Sunday school late because things didn't work out. So hopefully you have your Bibles and everything handy, your study guide. And so go ahead and whip that on out. Turn your Bibles to chapter 40 in Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 40. And here we go. It's the right one, right? I'm thinking of the right one. Hold on, I just want to make sure because I tend to, when me personally, when I get sidetracked, I don't always get back on the right track. So I want to make sure that everything's good. So chapter 40 out of Isaiah. We're going to be specifically in verses 18 through 31. But just remind you guys, we're working our way through the whole book this session. So make sure that you guys are reading different passages, all the passages through, all the way through our lessons sometimes. Our reading plan for the next couple days will actually take us through, and it's on a different, see, it's on a different deal. So it's like through 45 or 46. Today we're in chapter 40. And I want you guys to think about something real quick before we really dive into it. The title is God Renews. And we're going to see through this study where he helps us understand that he will strengthen us when we call on him. And when we desire to seek him out, He will answer, and he'll answer in a way that we are reinvigorated, so to speak, that we get strength, that we can build muscle. There's an illustration I will get to here in a second. But God desires to provide strength to those who trust in him. He wants us to take his advice, and in return for his advice, or not in return, there's not an exchange there, but if we're seeking him out, what he provides is strength. What he provides is that renewal. As a result of his holiness, God appeals to people to be holy so they can live right before the Lord. But people often look to other things for their strength. And we can see this in today's world, not only in the past where these guys were this place, we're looking at ancient history, so to speak. But today's world, we look to finances. We look to knowledge. Right? School, achievements, accolades, awards sometimes. We try to draw strength from those things, whereas we should be seeking out God for the holy strength, the strength that and the gift that can only come from him. In verse 18, and we're going to read, let's go ahead and read chapter 40, verse 18. With whom will you compare God? What likeness will you set up for comparison with him? And we're reading out the Christian Standard. If it's out, if you have another version, go ahead and read those. But it's asking a question, and it's like, it's pondering. It's a ponder state of mind. It's like, well, who can I compare God to? And that's the wrong state of mind. You see, when we're looking at this question, it's the wrong frame of reference. Verse 19, Isaiah exposed people's unrighteousness, for they were making idols. An idol, verse 19, an idol, something that a smelter casts and a metal worker plates with gold and makes silver chains for. When you have jewelry, sometimes like your body can wear it. You can put it on. You can put it. This is kind of gross. You can put it in, right? You have little holes and everything like that. But sometimes what you want to display is not attachable. A pendant. Like this is a ring, but you want to showcase a stone, like many wedding bands are, many, jewelry, just that stuff that you want to look nice with. You have to attach it to something. And what he's saying here at the end, he says there's chains. When you want to wear a pendant, there's a chain there. And that chain usually isn't the best metal. And what he's saying here, he's going down the line. He's like describing how weak some of these things are. So, in verse 20, Isaiah remarked that there are occasions when people would choose poor materials and the idol would fall. Let's look at verse 20. A poor person contributes wood for a pedestal that will not rot. My TV's getting ready to go off. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not fall over. A poor person contributes wood for a pedestal that will not rot. He looks for a skilled craftsman to set up an idol that will not fall over. People conspire with others to make idols that are faulty, yet God alone made people. And that's the stark contrast when we're thinking that we maybe can do better than what God can provide for us, or that we seek something out that maybe man has made and God hasn't. Whew. That's crazy to think about, right? But we do it all the time. We do it every single day. For instance, God has provided us all with, I don't want to sound condescending at all or anything like that, but he's provided us all with a brain. He's provided us all with a body, with tools. And I'm not talking just about woodworking tools or anything of that type of stuff. Utensils. He's provided us with appliances. He's provided us with a lot of deals. We don't need to go out and get us something to eat. We don't have to go out to eat. We may enjoy it. We may like the food. We may all do all that type of stuff, but we don't need to. He's provided us with everything that we can get to consume the food and nutrients and nourishment that we need. However, some of us look at our situation and be like, well, I don't have enough money to eat. I don't have enough this to do that. I don't have enough resources to go out and be on my own or do what I want to do. That's not the right frame of reference. That's not the right perspective, or what we might talk about paradigm. It's not the correct lens that we're looking through, right? Instead, we should see, well, what has God provided me with so that I can do these things? We should look to God first. See, that's where the priority, that's where it shifts. Instead of looking at ourselves, we should look to God. And that's what Isaiah is talking about here when he's talking about what do we really worship and what do we go out to really, really do and seek and all that type of stuff. For most of us, it's a job. For most of us, it's a place of employment. It's a lot of these worldly things. We don't really necessarily consider where God has placed us and God wants us to go and work. Prophets have affirmed God's story as the creator many times. The Lord is above all things, and all people are like grasshoppers to him. Reading on after verse 20 says, do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been declared to you from the beginning? Have you not considered the foundations of the earth? Verse 22, God is enthroned above the circle of the earth. Its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like thin cloth and spreads them out like a tent to live in. Verse 23, he reduces princes to nothing and makes judges of the earth like a wasteland. Verse 24, they are barely planted, barely sown. Their stem hardly takes root in the ground. When he blows on them and they wither, and a whirlwind carries them away like stubble. You know, when God is the creator of everything, God is even the creator of the weather. And here in Oklahoma, we have to deal with some pretty extreme weather. I heard a really, really good joke yesterday. I don't know where it came from. I'm sure it was on Facebook somewhere, but my wife, we was riding. I can't remember what we was doing. Driving maybe? I don't know. But she said, Oklahoma weather be throwing out them temperatures like the lottery numbers. You know, 28, 99, 42, 68, 32. And we're getting ready to go through that. Just a few days ago, it was like 90. It was... the weather here in Pawnee was like 90-degree weather. There was some wind. There was some craziness going on. Tomorrow and tonight and in the next couple of days, we're supposed to hit freezing. It's crazy. God created it. We have to understand that we don't have any control over that, and we have to obey. We have to trust that he's going to protect us. How is he going to protect us? Well, he's provided us a house. He's provided us land, nutrients to survive in and everything like that. But there's also some other extreme weather out there during different times of the year for Oklahomans. And when it says a whirlwind carries away like stubble, tornadoes are extremely powerful. No matter how small or big they are, they can destroy man's buildings. They can sweep them completely off the foundation. And that's what it's like when we have to look at God and keep him priority. When we're looking at what he has provided us, what he has done for us. When we look to what we can do, God can destroy it in a matter of milliseconds. And that's, the shortest time that we, usually measure thousandths of a second. He can take it away just like that. Verse 20, let's see. Are we reading through? Well, I'm getting my bearings here. Yeah. Verse 25. To whom will you compare me? And who is my equal? Asked the Holy One. That's a question again. So we have a question here. The first part, with whom will you compare God? What likeness will you set up for comparison with him? Verse 18. Now verse 25. To whom will you compare me? And who is my equal? Look up and see who created these. He brings out the stars by number. He calls all of them by name because of his great power and strength. Not one of them is missing. Think about that. Think about that. For us natives, there is a strong opinion out there, and it's opinion. North America was not discovered, right? But who is responsible for that? We get caught up in all this stuff, all this debate and all this worldly stuff. But who do we owe our creation to? God. And all this happened because God has allowed it to happen, has made it happen, has planned for it. And that's something that we really, some of us really struggle with. I struggle with it when I'm like, yeah, scientists found another star. I'm like, but it was always there. It's always been there. We didn't find new things. We're discovering new things or anything like that type of stuff. God's already ordained it. God's already taken care of it. And that's where I think some of us could probably hang our worries up. We don't have to worry about that stuff because God will take care of it. God will use it in some way, shape, or form or fashion. Okay? Because of his great power and strength, not one of them is missing. Think about that. The stars of the sky. We can't discover any of those things. We just won't. The hair on your head, it's referred to in the Bible. He can count the number of hairs on your head. He can count the number of skin cells. We're made of billions and billions of skin cells, or not just skin cells, but billions and billions of cells that make up our body, right? Everything is there. Everything is in its place for a reason, for a purpose, and it was put there by God. Just let that sink in for a little bit. As seen through creation, God has no comparison. According to Isaiah, past experiences show that God has been faithful to his chosen people. We're going to get to that here in a second. In verse 28, Isaiah declared God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. There is none like him. Therefore, God expects his people to live faithfully by being holy. Be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. And that comes from Leviticus. That's a reference to 1 Peter. God chose the Israelites to be his people and called them to be a living paradigm. There's that word again, paradigm. Paradigm is a frame of reference. It's the lenses that we have, that we see the world through, that we see through. We should correct that vision to be able to put God right there instead of something that could cloud our vision. See, God will allow us to see everything. If we really look through God and his lenses about being holy, what we're called to do, then we will see everything for what it really is. God would demonstrate to the world through Israel the demands of being a living witness. As God's chosen people, they had a responsibility to be set apart from the rest of the world. Let me read that sentence again, not so fast. As God's chosen people, they had a responsibility to be set apart from the rest of the world. The reason for such criteria was, as a people, they were to be the reflection of God, and that continues today. The blessing was on the Israelites early on. The blessing has been extended because Jesus came and died for everybody. He didn't just come and die for the Israelites. He came and died for all people, all of creation that have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Through him, we can be made righteous. If we believe that he was sent to die for those things. He rose again. He was resurrected because he conquered death. If we believe that, then we are called to be different. We're called to be a holy people. God knew people who couldn't keep his demands perfectly, so he proclaimed through Isaiah that God's people can accomplish his purposes through the strength he gives them as they lean on and trust in him. And that's one of the things that we really have to stay and keep in the forefront of our mind when we're thinking about these things. When we're looking at going back to verse 21, how do these verse 21 through 26, it says, there's a question here that we want to reflect on. It says, how do these verses affirm God's identity? We already said that maybe the weather can give us a clue, different weather events, but also the things that we tend to say that I wouldn't say made, but that we, or created, but that we used and modified and published. There we go, we published. See, there are ideas that writers and many, many artists, they will think of an idea, but to get it out there to the masses, to the general public, to all the distribution channels, so to speak, most of the time the artist doesn't do that themselves. There's another entity. It doesn't have to be one person. It could be a company or whatever. They're the ones responsible for getting it out there, whether that's print, whether that's digital, whether that's logical, so to speak. We have patents, we have things, records that say that we own a certain thing. It's attributed to an artist, but it's not necessarily like physical, right? Not digital. It's just it's a mind thing. It's a thought process, a thing. Process, like Six Sigma. That's a way of doing things as lean as possible. Even certifications. To be a a certified public accountant, you have to have a certain amount of knowledge, and then they slap a stamp on you saying, well, you're that. Same way with lawyers, doctors, and all that. The only way you get that is if somebody recognizes that. The only way somebody recognizes it if somebody says, hey, this guy is that. You can't do it by yourself, so to speak, right? Well, one of the things that we have to understand is we have to recognize those witnesses, those testimonies. When we are looking at the beauty of nature, it didn't get that way because we made it. We didn't get that way because of chaos. It didn't get that way because of natural evolution and all this other stuff. It was made that way because of God. And that's the frame of reference we have to put our vision through, our lenses, that we have to make sure that they're crystal clear. God was responsible for that. And only God can do some of these things. And that's what the lesson is about going to him for strength, about going to him for that spiritual maturity. If we want to mature, we want to do better in life, if we want to grow, the only way we get growth is if we go to God. The only way we get blessed with an increase is from the one who can give increases. Now, we trade, and we might place a higher value on things in this world than somebody else, and we exchange value, but the created part, that was already done, you see? And that was done by God. In all his ways, character, and being, God is unmatched. He's unmatched. Divine beings or gods of other nations falls far short in comparison to the holy God of Israel. And we see that even in today's world, idols. Some countries idolize their country's leader. But how he got there was because of God. It wasn't because he did it. God allows authority for certain people, for certain regions, and that's the blessed one. Now, whether or not that's his own deal. Whether or not he gives the credibility to the right place, which is God, that might be his downfall, and we have to be on guard of that. They're talking about, let's see, we already talked about the stars and night, so we'll skip over that part. But so we read verses 18 through 26. We're going to read 27 through 31 real quick. So Jacob, why do you say, and Israel, why do you assert, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my claim is ignored by my God? Do you not know, have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the whole earth. He never becomes faint or weary. There is no limit to his understanding. Verses through 31. He gives me strength. He gives me strength to the faint, or no, it doesn't give me strength. It said he gives strength to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Youths may become faint and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. Distressed and dismayed over being exiled, the Israelites felt forsaken by God. And we go and we reference the studies on this part, this chapter, this situation for the Israelites. They probably didn't feel like they were blessed. And that's where sometimes we come up into a situation and we don't feel like we can complete it. We don't feel like we can overcome it. Much like what Brother Junior, similar to what Brother Junior was preaching about today, we may feel at times inadequate. But that's the part where we have to trust in him. And that's what the study is about. We can go to him because we see here through Isaiah the prophet, he will bless us. If we go to him and trust in him and do what he has called us to do, he will give us that strength. Because we're out there trying to rely on our own selves, trying to rely on our own resources, trying to rely on what we can come up with, we'll use it all up. Kind of like the fire. Kind of like the fire right there, right? We can go out and we can see a tree and we can cut down a tree and burn up all the wood or whatever. But if we need more wood, where are we going to get it from? Say we only have one single tree. Well, God has created a way that we can grow more trees, or we can find more ways of using that wood, right? We don't have to use just wood. We can use oil. We can use all these other things. He's blessed it. But if we don't recognize that, if we don't go to him and try to learn about this other stuff, right, then we're going to be lost. Again, Isaiah calls attention to God, who is eternal, creator, uniting, and unlimited in wisdom. How do reminders of who God is encourage us? How do these verses encourage you when you read over them? When you're reminded of who God is, how powerful he is, what he's called us to do. Some of us, again, Brother Junior talked about it somewhere in there, is talking about preaching. Really, if you think about it, when you are struggling with something, is it because it's a bad thing, especially when it comes from God? Most of the time, it's because we don't think that we can do it. But if he's called us to do it, then he'll supply the strength, he'll supply the resources. And that's something that we struggle with because we don't really necessarily see it with our own vision. We have to see it through his vision, through his lens, right? And that's the really powerful part, is that that's what we can toss on him, our worries and our cares, but we get from him strength. And that's really hard to understand. That's really hard to wrap our minds around. But think about good things, like the calling that he's placed upon maybe you. Is it really a bad thing? Is it really isn't really a negative thing what he's called you out to do. For instance, share the word of God with somebody. That's not a bad thing at all. We just think that, well, they're like so-and-so, they're like this, they're like that, they're whatever, you know, whoever we have, it's been placed on our heart to go speak to. We don't think they'll receive the message, but he's called us out to do it. All he wants us to do is communicate. And it's not necessarily about us, it's about him. See, that's not a bad thing. When we think about it, like, we're just scared. We're just scared. That at the end of the day, that's what it is. We're just scared most of the time. Sometimes it is complex, and there's some missions out there. There's some tasks that he's called us out to do that he has to supply, and he has to mature, and he has to grow. But he's given us that desire to be with him, to do his work and all that type of. That's what it really means. So that should encourage us that he's wanting to work with us. Think about any time, most of the time, when we want to be a part of something, somebody reaches out to us and says, hey, would you like to be a part of this? And it's something that we desire, that, you know, we think is a good thing or whatever. It's gonna encourage us. It's gonna be like, oh, well, I wasn't really, you know, feeling it, but now that you said something about it, yeah, okay, well, I'll be on board. That it's a good feeling, right? That should happen every time we get something from God and be like, he wants us to go over here, he wants us to do this, do that, or anything like that. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Resistance or strength training. Okay, think about a weight room, think about those dumbbells, think about the weightlifting machines, think about even the treadmill. Think about the treadmill. Like, we can see all this other stuff. Yeah, it's going to be hard, especially if we haven't been working out, if we haven't been doing some of these things. It's going to be tough. But think about just walking. Think about just walking. We're thinking about training, okay? The treadmill is going to allow us to walk. But you can change the speed of it. You can change the incline of it. Most of them. If we start going uphill, there's going to be a little bit more resistance on the way we're walking. If we start going a little bit faster, there's going to be a little bit more resistance on how we're trying to reach that next step. So all of it is resistance training. All of it's good cardio, by the way. But it says resistance or strength training is a form of exercise intended to improve muscular strength by making your muscles work against a weight or force. We don't necessarily think of walking as resistance or strength training, but it is, especially if we start introducing other elements to where we have to adjust our weight in a fashion we're not used to. And again, walking uphill, walking downhill too. I mean, we got to take a little step. We can't be taking those big old giant leaps when we're going downhill unless we're really, really good at it, right? And even then, when we're hitting those steps down, we gotta make sure we catch ourselves, and that stuff helps. That's why going up and down stairs is a good exercise, a good activity. But it's just walking, it's just running, it's just these basic things that we should all be accustomed to, right? Gravity. The weight of your own body is working against your muscles. The only way you're going to get better is if you continually do it. Free weights, resistance bands, and your own body weight can be used as forms of resistance. And we think that, jumping rope, well, that jumping, that will cause some resistance to be able to move your weight up and down. Mention how resistance training not only offers physical benefits, but it also has been found to increase mental sharpness and self-esteem. The self-esteem part, obviously, it goes without saying that if you picture yourself looking better or looking more idealistic in the frame of other people's whatever they, their image, you're going to feel better about yourself, right? You're trying to work and achieve towards something. But the other part, the mental sharpness. Athletes the ones who are out there, the professional athletes too, their mental sharpness on certain things is probably better than anybody else's out there, right? Reaction time, the ability to see things before they happen and know where to be. And the only way is going through those repetitions. So for instance, yesterday there was I think there was an interception somewhere in one of the games, and I remember thinking, you know how many times somebody has to see a ball flying through the air to be able to judge, like, hey, I'm going to get that, well, know where that ball is landing, but then to be able to adjust in their mind, okay, I got to change my body weight, I got to shift right here, I got to step over here to be able to make an attempt to catch that pass, and for the defense, right, an attempt to intercept it. All that happens in a split second. But the more we're doing it, the more we're going to be apt to be able to make those decisions when they come at us, right? Just as lifting weights enhances our physical and mental strength, God strengthens us spiritually through his limitless power. In verse 27, there's those questions there. It says, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my claim is ignored by God. How do life's difficulties impact our need for God? Well, we said it this whole study, but we recognize it even with the preaching this morning, and we go through things all the time where maybe we look at our circumstances and get down on ourselves. But if we have God, we see where these opportunities are being open so that we can receive his power. What's the author of this study is saying, limitless power. Problems, pain, and struggles of life press us all at one time or another, and we're not immune to any of those types still. Like we're trying to get a vaccine to become immune from COVID. There is no vaccine for life's quote unquote troubles. For instance, on earth, there's no place where it's perfect, where you can just go, eat, relax, laugh, enjoy, and all that type of stuff, unless you're in the presence of God. Unless you're in the presence of God. You see? Sometimes we don't have that escapability, that easy access, because we got life. We got this thing that we have to get up. We have to go to work. We have to do certain things. For instance, if we are in school, for all of us kids and all of us adults that are in college and getting a higher education and whatnot, if we have to go to class, we have to go to a conference, we have to go to a meeting, we may be exposed to the virus. Now, thankfully, they're working on a vaccine to be able to help us out. But, fact of life, we're enjoying life. Death is a part of life. We get a call. One of our relatives has gone on to meet the Lord. That just happens. Sometimes we come down with cancer. And even the COVID, the current pandemic situation itself, we can't really guarantee that we're not going to get it. And we get it. We catch it. Well, now what do we do? See, we're not immune from those worries. We're not immune. But we have a place to go take it to. And that's what the study really focuses on, is like not really the place that we're taking it to, not really the problems, but the action, what we're called to do. Take it, package it up, send it on to God, and let him take care of it. but it's the practice. It's the repetition of that. That's why we're talking about weight strength. You don't just go, you don't just go and get 100-pound weight, or like the bench press, the dumbbell, the crossbar for I don't know, the lifting bar. I don't even know what it's called anymore. But you go and bench press, you put all those weights on there. You don't just get strong by doing it once or doing it twice. In fact, most of the ones who can actually bench press those things have done it probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of times to be able to get to that point and be like, I can do this. That's what God is doing for you. He's giving you little tasks, little opportunities to improve your strength, to improve your communication with Him, to improve your trust in Him. And then there's going to be a time where you're going to be able to be like, all right, God, you got this because you sent me to it. You're bringing me through it. I trust in you. And you'll be able to give it to Him. But it's that repetition. It's that training. God grants renewed strength to those who wait on Him. How can our impatience impact our ability to experience God's strength? Man, let's take the weightlifting example for instance. We go and we think that we got this, and God says, go lift that 400-pound bar. Because we haven't been training, because we haven't been doing that, we might be able to lift it, but it's going to hurt us. It's going to bring us down. It's going to make us painful. Much like Jacob, what we talked about earlier with the struggle and everything. There's going to be signs. There's going to be an illustration that we're going to be able to point to. Sometimes it's ourselves. We go and try to do that in this world, in the physical world, and we haven't been lifting weights or anything. We're going to say, yeah, we got that. You might pull your back out. You might injure yourself, right? You might do some of those things. Same way, if you haven't been relying on God, there's going to be some times, there's going to be some points that you're going to see that, I probably should have been in my book, in my Bible, I've been in my devotion, been in my study, because it might have helped me out during this time. Even though I was relying on God and I eventually went to Him, or I went to Him immediately, I didn't really know how to handle it. I didn't really know how to do some of these things. He doesn't want that for you. That's why He wants a constant relationship. You get out of training with your weights, with even work. If you don't practice something, right? When it comes time to do that, your chances of failing are higher. Even though you got it done, you might have made a mistake. You might have messed up. Let's see here. Yeah, when the cares of this life are heavy, we must trust in the Lord to give us strength. He will empower us to faithfully complete the journey. Howdy reminders, okay. So that was our study, and we'll just end. What's the focus verse? Yeah, we'll just end on that. It says, youths may become faint and weary, and young men stumble and fall, but those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not become weary. They will walk and not faint. With God, there's no lack or want. He's our tireless fortifier, recognizing His incomparable nature right there at the beginning and through the middle of the verses there. We see that question posed. Who can I compare God to? You can't compare Him to anybody because He's God. And greatness, his incomparable nature and greatness as creator of the universe gives us confident trust in His ability to strengthen and sustain us. Again, that phrase that's used often, if He's going to bring us to it, He's going to see us through it, okay? Renewed, enduring strength is found in God alone. This is a neat little option. This is kind of a little bit native themed as well. Find a picture of an eagle, or if you're a native and you're allowed a certain, you have a distinct privilege, and I encourage you to respect, use, don't abuse that privilege. Okay, it says maybe get an eagle feather. Now, a lot of us do have eagle feathers and we haven't displayed prominently, but here's what the challenge is, and display it somewhere you'll see it often. Let the image serve as a reminder of God's strength to help you soar above life's difficulties. Again, us natives know we respect the eagle because he's the one that flies the highest. He's the one that is right there. If there was a heaven, the eagles would be right there. The eagles would be skimming along, probably touching it with their wings, touching it with their feathers. And so we see the image there. So if you're not able to have a real eagle feather, it says to get a picture of an eagle. And there's those things. The reason we put up pictures is to jar our memories, right? To be able to reminisce sometimes, to be able to showcase sometimes, right? Not only for ourselves, but for other people. Well, think of that. And these are like inspirational posters and stuff like that. But do it. Maybe not an eagle. Maybe not an eagle feather. Maybe a cross. Whatever you pick or choose, let it remind you of God. And let it remind you that He wants you. He wants to give you that strength. He wants to renew you. He wants to be able to have that relationship with you. Let that be a reminder. Let that be something that helps encourage you. Again, God is the one who has limitless strength to be able to provide you during those times that maybe we feel insufficient. Maybe we feel that we can't complete it. But again, He's brought us to it. He's going to see us through it. Next week, we're going to be in session 9. The title is God Acts. And I found a way to do the bulletins again, so we'll have the screen up. The PowerPoint. I took the green out, and so we won't have like fuzzies and stuff like that. So we'll be in verses 3 through 13 of chapter 46. Again, it's God Acts. God Acts, and we're going to see some pretty neat things. Again, we're making our way through here. I would usually do the summary, but we're going to be alive. We're going to be live again in about what is that? It's not quite 5 hours, 4 hours and 45 minutes with Brother Robert Ankney. And so I hope you guys tune in again. Join us for our Sunday evening. And that concludes our Sunday school. And I want to thank you for tuning back in after a really good message. And we'll be back here in a little while.